What we know, what we think we know, and what we don't know. Well, it's the defensive line version. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. So this one is gonna probably be kind of quick and easy because we all kind of know what went on with the defensive line last year. Um, if there was ever a roller coaster position we had on the field on literally as the saying goes, any given Sunday, it was those guys because overall we had a good defense, but overall their play was. I mean, I can only come up with one word. It's inconsistent because at times we could get a good pass rush from them, but compared to previous years, it wasn't what we're used to seeing. The run defense at times was okay, was enough. And you could even splash in some good tackles for loss or run stops by some of the defensive line players, but both on interior and the edge. But it wasn't enough. Um, so overall, you would look from like a kind of a year to year comparison. It's like a down year. But again, we could have some games where they played really, really well. We could even have stretches of games where they played really, really well. When you look at the end results, going numbers don't look good. Just found it really weird. And overall, the defense was pretty good despite that. But at times, it also seemed like, especially the linebackers, but the other seven, the back seven, spent a lot of time having to cover maybe some holes and making some plays and going, oh. But at the same time, I also think at times that we were kind of doing that. And some teams, some really good offensive teams with really good schemes and OCs, Detroit, Rams, Jags at times in that game, times in the first Tampa game, times in the Houston game. Those are kind of like five of the playoff teams that we played that you kind of saw where at times they just kind of exploited what was going on in the defense. And you kind of go back and look at it and you're going, a little better defensive line play might have worked its way back to the other seven players. And we maybe play a little better defense. And some of those games maybe give us a chance to win, and others give us a chance to not get blown out in the first quarter or the first half where we really couldn't come back and recover. So I think that that's kind of the problem is trying to get everybody up on that defensive line just better all across the board. But in some cases, it's going to be a little rough. In other cases, just a little tweak here or there could make a huge difference. So what do we know about what's returning? We know that Curtis Granderson started out a house of fire really last year, played really, really well, did have some kind of issues coming down the stretch. Maybe didn't play as well, maybe at times even kind of disappeared, but had a lot of us scratching our heads at that point. And then we find out this offseason he did talk about it, and um, in a mea culpa moment, he basically said, "Look, I wasn't prepared for the increased snaps that I was going to get last year. I didn't do the right things in the off season, training wise, preparing in preparation. Got into the season, he started out well, but then he said, but I was having problem maintaining my weight with all the increased snaps and some conditioning issues. He kind of mentioned that also came along with that." And he actually, in the interview that he gave in OTAs, mentioned he started dropping weight by the end of the year, and he was actually playing a little light, trying to handle that edge. I'm like, oh yeah, all kind of makes sense. And he's like, look, figured out what the problem was, and he's addressed it. He said, look, as far as the nutrition, I think he's got a personal chef now to help him out. Whole new plan in not only in the nutrition end, but also in the preparation, the workouts, the conditioning, everything to try to keep everything up here. It's like, okay, So we know if he can pull that off, so we can get 17 games out of him a full season like he started last year, we're good on one edge. We're going to be really, really good. And some guys in the media and around the team have said it could move up to elite play from him if he has all that fixed and is ready to go for 17 games. The other thing we know, we made a pretty good pick with Bryan Bresee late in the first round. Now, he's not the monster, let's say Jalen Carter is, because he was the top guy in the defensive interior coming out last year's draft. But we knew coming out that he was a pretty good pass rusher, moves pretty well, especially straightforward as a big man, a 300-pound guy playing on the interior, and he brings a pretty good pass rush. We knew coming in that in his years at Clemson, the two really downsides was his health, which was mostly good last year, and let's hope that continues through the rest of his career. And his run defense was a little suspect, and last year that proved to be true. He played well in the pass rush. I've mentioned before, I was at that Giants game, and he just popped on the field as a couple sacks in that game, couple nice plays. But you could just tell the way he was moving and just so aggressive. Seeing it live, it opened your eyes, going, "Ooh, yeah, that there's something special there." It may not be fully developed yet at the NFL level like we need it, but I think it will be. I think plenty of tools. Mostly, what we need from him is continue to get better in the pass rush. Um, Rookie year last year and kind of getting some serious snaps. Rookies sometimes get caught. So there you could pull any average game film out on him and then see that really wow play and then a play where he's an NFL rookie and he boo-booed, so to speak. But his run defense, it's kind of the opposite where it really wasn't that good on the NFL level, really got exposed. However, if you go back and watch highlights, you will see a couple of really nice run stops, a couple of nice TFLs. So again, okay, the ability's there. We got to get it better, more consistent. And if you can get his run defense to catch up to his pass rush and keep nudging him up the scale, well, now all of a sudden you got two really good young players in Granderson, and especially him because he's going into his second year. We know we can have really, really two good, great, maybe someday moving up to the elite level. We hope if they continue the progress. So we know we're good there. Bresee, what we don't know, there's a little splash of that, is will his run defense catch up? Hopefully it does. Now, what we think we know. This starts getting, if we do know what we think we know, it starts improving our outlook on the defensive line quite a bit. Is what we think we know from the insights of mini camps and OTAs is that Payton Turner and Isaiah Foskey may have turned the corner. They may be ready to step up and give us some production. And you're talking about Turner, former first rounder, Foskey, a second rounder last year, that had not really moved the needle in one way, shape, or form for different reasons so far in their careers. But supposedly bring a lot of potential along that defensive line that we've been expecting to see. Now, in Foskey's case, this is only his second year. We did a video, and I will put it on the end card to go back and look and realize that he's another player that, lack of a better word, he screwed up a lot last year. I shouldn't say he screwed up a lot. A lot of stuff happened, and he didn't deal with it correctly. That's kind of what he's admitting to, that he recognized it. I'm working on fixing that so it won't happen again. And when I get an opportunity this year, then I'm going to make the most of it. So what we think we know is, okay, we're going to get something out of Foskey. Hopefully fully moves into realizing his second round potential, borderline first, because as we cover in the video, there was a lot of good pass rushers or edge players in that draft. and he's supposed to be one of them. Turner's just been bit horribly by the injury bug. Yet another defensive lineman first round that we've had that falls under. Um, by all accounts, seems to be healthy and was impressive in his work last month. So keep him healthy and see that on the field and get snaps, and especially because he could be a guy that could play on the edge and kick inside of the interior. And with Tano passing out for a while with the torn Achilles, that role that he had is wide open, and Turner may be a guy that can fill it. As a former first rounder coming in, realizing his potential and being able to do the stuff passing out did, that's a role we're going to need to fill. And we think we know that Turner healthy is going to be able to fill it. What we also think we know is that Chase Young is going to be healthy and ready to go in a couple of weeks when training camp starts. And that one is huge. Couple reasons. One, if you can get him healthy from the jump, and now you're going to be working, because when we get to what we don't know on the defensive line, there's going to be a lot of question marks there. But now if you could at least say, hey, we've got no question marks on the starting edge because we know Granderson is there and is going to be fine. We think we know Young is healthy. Well, if that turns out to be put it in the what we know category, he's healthy from the jump. We have our two edge players out there ready to go, our starters. It's going to solve a lot of problems. We know Bresee's a good pass rusher on the inside. We don't know if he's going to get his run defense to catch up. But if it does, well, now you really have something that you're looking at. We think we know Foskey and Turner are ready to make that jump. Now you just added 5 pretty good players into the mix, all being productive. So I think what we see, starting with those 5, because they are the closest to, I do not want to use the word sure thing or phrase, but potentially the most comfortable, that when we look at the defensive line of trying to get consistent, better play. Because I think that's what we're really talking about, is we can get those guys back up to just a consistent pass rush, run defense, like we had a few years ago and earlier than that, take some pressure off that linebacking core in that secondary, and then go ahead and add what we really need from them is pressures, sacks, run stops, big plays in the backfield, or blowing stuff up. So a Demario Davis or Pete Werner or somebody like that can get in there and make the big play in the backfield. So we know a little bit. We think we know a little bit more. But if we can put all that in the we know and feel comfortable category, now the defensive line is really shifting to something we're worried about and could be a weakness to going. But at least it's not a weakness, and it could potentially be a strength. So what we don't know, probably number one on the list, and this is a big one, because I hate to bring up salary and cap and all that, but just the way Cam Jordan's money is situated, he's not going anywhere, and we really, really need him to come back and be Cam Jordan. And even if he can't be Cam Jordan of what we've seen throughout his whole career, if it boils down to where he's going to be one of the, I don't mean this as a disparaging way, but just the simple fact that one of the kind of the back end guys on the roster who are only going to get limited snaps, and possibly even in just specific situations, if it's 10, 15, 20 a game, we can get the old Cam Jordan back for 10, 15, 20 a game. Be a big improvement over what we got from him last year. And ties back into some of the knows, and we think we knows we just talked about. Well, we're going to have to be right on those. But Cam's health and what he can potentially contribute, and dare I say what he potentially has left in the tank as a veteran player who's been a rock in the lineup, getting a lot of snaps for a very long time. Sooner or later, that catches up with the player. So Hopefully not for him. Hopefully the ankle issues last year was where all that was coming from. That's all behind him, where he's going to be fully healthy, ready to go in camp and contribute at a high level, whatever he can contribute on a high level. But hopefully it's a significant amount of snaps for 17 games, because we're really, really going to need that from Cam. I think what we don't know is can we get him better interior play from Kalen Saunders and Nathan Shepard? Better, consistent, especially because again, you probably pull some game film from you randomly from any game that they played in and see where they played well, where they didn't play well. They're kind of here to stop the run, and give some type of pass rush. Didn't really consistently see that all year. And I don't want to bang on them because I have to emphasize we didn't see that consistently from any of them all year. But again, we saw what Granderson and Bresee did in their strong points for large parts of the year. We didn't really see Kalen Saunders and Nathan Shepard do it for large portions of the year. So hopefully they can, but we just don't know. And it kind of ties into the next guy because Khristian Boyd, our rookie 6th-round pick, that's what he's here for, is to be the big mammoth kind of run stuffing guy that we need in the middle. Now, it's an interesting 6th-round pick that they put on him. And I talked about this, 2 months ago when we were covering the draft after it was over, is there were some potentially elite type interior defenders, both stopping the run and being able to rush the passer. And obviously they go first. But the next group that goes are kind of the Bryan Bresees of the world that can rush the passer, because that's just what the NFL is just mostly geared to. Most teams, they're valuing the pass rush from those front players. A lot of times, a little more or even a lot more than the run defense. Sometimes to your detriment, because we saw last year how inconsistent the defense can be when you're inconsistent against stopping the run, and how everything after that is affected by it. So that's why he's sitting down there in the 6th round, because he didn't necessarily show any signs of a pass rush from the interior at the NFL level, let's say. But and everybody's like, and there was a large group of them around there, and a lot of them got 5th, 6th, 7th round of guys that fall in his. They're good against the run. They're going to come in there and bring a lot of beef, a lot of strength, and some movement that's going to help defend against the run. We just don't know if they can bring a lick of pass rush. Hopefully he can, because then now you're really in a good scenario where he's just not a specialist run defender. And I hate using just in that phrase, and it's not a bad thing because the Saints desperately need some help there. Goal line situations, 3rd, 4th, and shorts, and having an extra guy like him to just come in and plug it up in the middle and make some stops there is going to go a long way. And then when you get past him, what we don't know is we do not know any, again, not meaning it as a disparaging term, but just the way it is, but contributions from the back end of the roster, wherever that may come from. Just from training camp, I do remember when I was kind of looking over the existing roster, seeing, Raging Jeffcoat and Nico Lalos rattled some swords while they were there in OTAs and minicamp, and got some mentions and turned some heads at times. And on the interior, Kendall Vickers, Kyle Ball, Jack Heflin are all guys that are still on the roster on the interior. Some of those guys, and I don't know who they are right now, we're gonna have to find them in training camp. Or if none of these do, then we're gonna have to move on from them and go find some guys coming out of training camp to be ready for the regular season. But those guys have to be good enough to get snaps. Because the NFL, you cannot roll anymore. Rarely, I should say, can you anymore roll out. Basically, what Cam did is he's going to take 60, 70 plays a game, every game in the season, and play at a high level. It's incredibly hard. better to have a rotation where you can have guys that can come in. And in the case of Cam, now Cam may be the guy that comes in. It has to be Chase Young for 10 plays while we're rotating Young out. And they may have to slide inside and beat to no passing Yow for 10 plays on the interior when we go into that where we take some of those edge guys and put them in the interior next to Bresee to get a pass rush going. Somebody's going to have to do it. So hopefully these groups that are kind of still on the roster, this group, mostly young players. I know a couple of them are been in the NFL for a couple of years, but just whatever that mix is, and they make the roster and can be able to come in. And then the worst case scenario, when they have to play significant snaps because of an injury situation, that they're able to come in and do it. And we don't know if we have any of that. Like I said, some of those guys did a little sword rattling. That's probably why they're still here, ready to go in the training camp, where we're going to put the pads on people. It's going to get real, and we'll find out one way or the other. So, like, what it really boils down to is hoping what we think we know and what we don't know. A lot of those topics land in the we know we're good category, that this is going to work out. Because when you're looking at, as long as we're potentially right on Bresee and Granderson, good thing. And what we think we know, the more we get of those, okay, healthy Chase Young, the realization of Turner and Foskey is gonna now finally be the guys we need him to be. And wrapping that all up in training camp, yeah. Now you move forward, and then you've got to try to get some of what we don't know ironed out as early in training camp as we possibly can. Because if you don't, if we're kind of back in the position of last year, which is mostly Granderson's going to play well, Bresee's going to play well in the spots where he can and do what he can, and probably still give us that pass rush. But then everybody else becomes question marks and inconsistent, and we don't quite know what's going on. I think we're back into the level of where we were last year, which was a good defense. It really was, but it just kind of wasn't enough. Now, hopefully, we're going to have the offense to maybe not make that so important, but we don't know that for sure. But what we do know is we've had some great defenses. And I don't think you quite put last year's in the great category, but they knocked on that door and stepped through at least a couple of times during the year. And you're going, if we can get the consistency level back up, and I really think it's the defensive line is kind of the focus, because especially now, I think our linebacker room, and I'm going to do a video on that maybe the end of this week or next week is going to come out, is really good. Our cornerback room is really good. Our safety room is a question mark, but it's one I think we can solve one way or the other. Just hopefully we solve it the right way. And even so, if you improve the defensive line with the other two position groups being pretty good, then all of a sudden safety changes a little bit, where we may not necessarily need elite play. We need just solid, good play. And that we do have a lot of players that can do that. You know, not necessarily, maybe not going to need you to make all the big plays you need to make. Just don't get us killed on the back end. Well, in order for that to happen, we're going to have to start at the front end, and those guys are going to have to get the sacks up, get the pressures up, get the run stops up without having to pull more and more bodies into the box to try to do it. But I think we can. I don't think when you run through what we just talked about, there's any one area where you go, holy crap, we have no chance of putting two good edge players out there or putting some very good play together on the interior. I think we can. Just problem is we don't know for sure right now. So if you think that getting the defensive line consistent and let's say one or two steps better than they were last year is going to be the ingredient, that makes our defense good / great to great / back to one of the defenses that we've had at various times in the last decade and a half. That's just like truly a fierce and dominant force. So I think we're that, as weird as it sounds that I was talking about the inconsistent play, I think we're a lot closer to some of those dominant defenses we've seen in the last 20 years than we are away from it. And I think getting the right answers on the what we think we know and what we don't know questions are the key to the whole thing. So if you agree with me on that one, give me a thumbs up. But I really think we're right there. It's just a big part of it is what's going on in that defensive line. So that's it for today. Thank you for joining. Wouldn't mind, please go ahead. Tell me what you think in the comments. For anyone who hasn't subscribed, please go ahead, hit that one for me, hit the notification so you'll know when we're all going to get together and talk about our favorite subject, the New Orleans Saints. So till next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.